Welcome back to Sunday Night in America. It's rare to sit down with a member of the Supreme Court. They're not able to talk about cases or politics or even defend their work. But Justice Neil Gorsuch has written a book about one of the most important topics of all, us, how we came into being, how we can keep this republic. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. The pen belonged to Thomas Jefferson. He said these truths were self-evident, but in reality, they were anything but. What our founding fathers devised was radical and revolutionary. And when it came time to codify those aspirations into a constitution, we set perfection as the goal in order to form a more perfect union. And we're still working towards that more perfect union. Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote a children's book titled The Heroes of 1776, which, by the way, is also relevant for adults. He looks back at the Declaration of Independence and the brave men and women who risked their lives to form this majestic idea we call the United States of America. Justice, let me say, first of all, thank you. It is a rare treat to sit down with a justice on the Supreme Court, so initially, thank you for doing this.
Oh, I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you, Trey.
I know we call this a children's book. I read it twice, and I learned something new both times I read it. I think it's really good for adults as well. So I want to start there. Most folks, including some of my former colleagues, struggle to distinguish between the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and lyrics from a U2 song. What's the best way to separate the Declaration of Independence from the Constitution?
Well, I think of the Declaration as our nation's ideals, our aspirations, our hopes. And it contained three big ideas, and they were pretty revolutionary at the time. One, that we all have inalienable rights that come to us by God, not privileges from government. Two, that we're all created equal, every one of us. And three, that we have the right to rule ourselves. That's kind of our nation's report card, I think. It's our aspirations, it's our hopes. Not always fully realized, but those are our hopes. The Constitution is a system of government, our division of powers, separation of powers, the three branches, your old branch, my branch, the presidency. And the separation of powers vertically as well between the states that have most responsibilities for government under our Constitution and the federal government. And the book is really trying to introduce children, and maybe their parents, to those three big ideas in the Declaration, and to show the kind of incredible courage that it took to pursue them. And, you know, I talk to young people a lot, and they say, well, you know, we have problems in this country, and we do. I'm not here to tell you otherwise. But where else in the world has committed itself to those three ideas? Where else in the world are you freer to pursue those ideas? Where else in the world do you have more responsibility to pursue those ideas? And at what other time in human history would you rather be alive?
So Jefferson writes, we hold these truths to be self-evident, although at the time they were anything but that. And then there's this other clause that he uses right before the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. He says, among these. What do you make of him choosing that hyphenated self-evident and then the among these?
Well, Jefferson later explained that he locked himself in the rented rooms from a bricklayer outside Philadelphia for 2 weeks and drafted the Declaration without referring to any book, he said, or pamphlet. He wanted to come up with what he thought was an expression of the American mind. And the notion that you're going to say, these are the only rights that belong to free people, I think humility must have dictated to him. I don't know, I wasn't there, but humility must have dictated to him that he couldn't possibly, by himself, say what all those rights would be, that they were among them, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the pursuit of happiness, I think, is kind of interesting. Does it just mean pleasure? Does it just mean watching endless TikTok reels? I think he was challenging us not to resort to simple pleasures, but to higher ones. We were all, after all, going to rule ourselves. And I think the pursuit of happiness for him meant to be participants in this community and to make a better life for all of us and our families.
I want to juxtapose the pursuit of happiness because in reality, they very well may have been signing their death warrant when they signed this. I mean, I think people forget this was at tremendous personal cost and consequence that they signed their names to this.
And honestly, that's why Janie and I wrote this book. You can read about the Stamp Act someplace else. What we wanted to convey was the humanity of these people. They thought they were signing their death warrants. They were committing an act of treason. They were subjecting themselves to death by hanging, and they knew that. And when they went to sign the Declaration on August 2nd, many of them, after they had approved it in July, after all those rancorous debates, and there were debates, and it wasn't unanimous, and it wasn't a foregone conclusion they were going to declare independence. And we trace in the book what happens to many of those signers. They were marked men. A third of them had their homes destroyed. Many of them were captured. Some had their wives and children captured too. They suffered tremendously.
Tell us about M.K. Goddard and the significance of using initials.
I love that story. That's what I learned in the course of writing this book. I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know all of these stories. So Congress is meeting in Baltimore, and they were desperate to get a printed copy of the Declaration with all the signers' names on it, out distributed to the American public as fast as they could to rally people to the cause, okay? To get those many people who were on the sidelines to come over to the Patriot side. And they turned to a printer, the local printer, Patriot printer. And Goddard would always, at the bottom of the newspaper, published by them, would print, printed by M.K. Goddard. When it came to the Declaration, it was a little bit different. Printed by Mary Catherine Goddard. She signed her whole name. So there's actually a woman's name on the printed copy of the Declaration with the signers' names on it. And to think about the courage that took her, right? She was marking herself as a traitor too.
How do we reconcile if you felt excluded from the initial draft of the Constitution? How could you still take pride in this Declaration?
So you're absolutely right. The Declaration's three big ideas did not extend to everybody at the time of the framing of our Constitution, and for a long time afterwards. And we confront that history in this book too. American history is complicated. But I think all of us can rally behind the three ideas in the Declaration. They speak to every human heart, that we're all equal, that we all have inalienable rights, and that we have the right to rule ourselves. Those are perfect ideas. We've been imperfect in executing them. But think about how they've been used through history. I think of them as our nation's report card. So Lincoln, during the Civil War, was able to say, how can you possibly have slavery when you say all men are created equal? Come back to the Declaration, he said. The women at Seneca Falls, beginning the women's suffrage movement, said the Declaration's absolutely right. All men are created equal. So are all women and men. We're all equal. They were right. Martin Luther King in 1963, standing before Lincoln's memorial, said it's a promissory note. The Declaration's a promissory note, and it's come due. And he was right. Declaration's been an inspiration for freedom movements all over the world as well. So many countries have copied our Declaration. Those radical ideas are now accepted widely. And so we challenge children in this book. What's the Declaration's next chapter going to be? How are you going to protect and preserve those ideas and make sure they last into the next and the next and the next generation?
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.